Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wine with Jimmy channel here on the world of YouTube. Thank you so much for stopping by on this wine educational channel. So this is designed for those of you at home enjoying wine, but moreover studying it and trying to get through those arduous and challenging wine examinations. Here we have a series on the wines of the world for the WSET Level 4, the diploma. And this is the Bordeaux series. It's a multi-part series. There you are, with 9 sections to it. And here we are on series 2 on vineyard management, which is only split into 2 parts, thankfully, because the last one, of course, was over 8 parts. So this part is available as free content here on the world of YouTube. Part 2 is only available to members of my e-learning portal over at winewithjimmy.com. So please go over there and sign up if you want that exclusive access with all of the trimmings, like things, flashcards and revision sessions, maps, etc. So let's go through the world of vineyard management in Bordeaux. There's the map of Bordeaux, not too applicable to what we're going through here on this section, but we're going to be talking about how the vineyard will be managed on a day-to-day basis. So some of the major concepts. So here we go. So there's a nice a chateau for you with some very much high density vineyards, which is very typical in the region of Bordeaux. So the tradition here in Bordeaux for the top quality, so more premium estates, is to have the real high density. So closely spaced vines, typically around 10,000 vines per hectare, and vines therefore being really planted at a maximum of 1 meter apart, with 1 meter between rows. Now, this is really quite suitable for the relatively infertile soils of this region, resulting in, of course, in a reduced amount of vine vigor. So really sort of strategically managing that vigor. Close planting like this will add to the cost, of course, because you have more plants, and more trellising has to be purchased as well. And also, of course, the type of machinery to access this very sort of close-knit network of vines is going to be quite specialist, and it will need to be purchased for it. So it's going to add to the cost even more for helping the vineyard through vine training, ploughing, and things like spraying, of course. But, of course, this is expensive viticultural real estate. It's very expensive, each vineyard. So this is actually making exceptionally good use of this area because, of course, you are packing more vines into the space. So it's actually very good use of the land. And then the less prestigious vineyards. It happens in every region. We have premium wines and inexpensive wines, and Bordeaux is by a long shot no exception. You do have a huge amount of inexpensive mass-produced wine produced in this largest region of France for wine. So these less prestigious appellations are planted at lower density. You can see, in fact, between the rows, between the vines here, is probably about 2 or 3 meters. And this is for something like Bordeaux AOC or Bordeaux Supérieur AOC. And we're talking somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 vines per hectare. So the density really at a third of what we were talking about from the more premium estates. Now, the type of management system for the vine we have just here. We typically have head-trained vines, which are replacement cane prune, which, of course, we call guillot in France. And we typically have 2 canes on the left bank. So 2 canes, as you can see here. So here's our trunk. It is head-trained, and then we have the canes coming off here. So this is what we call a double guillot. This enables for good management of the vine. You can manage the amount of buds, of course, quite well, which means you can manage, therefore, the yield quite nicely to match to the vine vigor. On the right bank, so around the Libourne area, Saint-Emilion, Pomerol, etc., we typically have the single cane, so the single guillot system in place. So the same, it's head trained. It is replacement cane pruned, but we call this the single guillot. And we also have a method in which you might find here as well, but it's quite rare, called the cordon trained, spur pruned, where you have permanent horizontal wood with little spurs that come off it, and that's where the buds are found. This is actually quite rare in Bordeaux, but some top prestigious estates do favour this, arguing that it is the reduction of yields that one gets through it that is good, and then also gives better aeration to the bunches, apparently. So that's can be found in some of the top right bank estates, some of them. What about other canopy management here? So we know that Bordeaux's climate is, fill in the blank. It is maritime, of course, and it's a moderate maritime climate. So it's a bit damp, and we know this because it's on the Gulf Stream, on the Atlantic. So canopy management, so really being proactive in managing the leaf foliage is very important in terms of the health of the vine and, of course, therefore, the health of the crop. And that's going to help reduce disease pressure, like fungal diseases. You've got things like powdery and downy mildew, for example, and botrytis bunch rot. Now, leaf removal takes place during summer, of course, because that's when we have the canopy growth. And it's intended to improve aeration, airflow through the canopy, which stops the fungus from establishing itself around the grapes, of course, and the green leaves. It also exposes the grapes to ultraviolet UV light, and that's to aid ripening. And when an attack of mildew is followed by rain, there is an issue around tractors accessing the land because it's difficult to get in and spray because of the amount of water. And the rain washes away the treatments as well because of the surface runoff, which can really compound the problems around here. Leaf removal can take place either on one or by both sides of the row, but you've got to remember that leaves are very important. They, of course, are the lungs of the vine absorbing sunlight, but they do offer things like protection against extreme sunlight, offering shading, for example. So you can have protection against sunburn or heat. And for example, one of the great vintages in terms of an example to give you is 2003 in Bordeaux, which was exceptionally hot. And in this vintage, there are those that carried on canopy management as they normally would, stripping the leaves away. But this would, of course, expose the grapes to much greater amounts of sunlight and heat, which would end up raisening the grapes, creating, of course, wines that really are out of balance, you know, lowering acidities with those kind of dried fruit characters or jamminess, that richness that you can get through it. It's less risky to remove leaves late in the season when extreme heat is less likely. And the bunches can also benefit from aeration. So it's something that may be done really during the ripening stage of the grapes, for example, in the later part of the season. There is a method also carried out here called soft pruning. So things like Utopia dieback and Esker have become major problems within Bordeaux, rotting the vine from inside. A relatively new philosophy of treatment called soft pruning can be used. It's increasingly popular throughout Europe, and it seems to be quite successful. The 4 key principles behind soft pruning are to protect vine structure, to promote sap flow, really sort of around the crown. The third area is the crown and the big cuts. So we'll talk through this in just a second, and also creating protective wood. So let's go through those 4 things. Vine structure. So one of the principal considerations is really the natural structure of a vine and training the vines to allow it to grow and develop it in a way which is natural to how it wishes to grow. And this natural growth pattern, as much as possible, of course, because you will have to desucker and things like that, is said to be extremely beneficial for the vine. The sap flow. So this principle is about really respecting the natural sap flow within the vine, and that's through the vine's vascular system. If you're not sure exactly what that is, you can look at my vine anatomy series as part of D1, and that ensures good continuity of sap flow through the vine itself. Principle 3 around the crown and big cuts focuses on the vine's crown at the top of the trunk and how to avoid big cuts close to the crown or the trunk. And that is to help minimize the pretty much what we call the corking effect inside the vine's vascular system. This also reduces opportunities for disease to enter the vine through the cut because there's not large wounds to the vine's actual support structure. And then protective wood is number 4. So this takes into account that each time a cut is made, a certain amount of wood adjacent to the cut will dry back. By leaving a little extra wood, we are protecting against infringement upon the vascular system by the dried component. Okay, so the 4 main principles there of soft pruning. What else would we mention? Well, the last slide here is there are issues around things like flavescence dore, which once again, if you want to have a look at my grapevine diseases part on D1 for that. But that is something which is contained in Bordeaux by insecticides and herbicides, more insecticides. But such treatments, of course, make the emerging band of organics and biodynamics a bit uneasy because, of course, it is utilizing sprays and kind of going to war on problems in the vineyard instead of working with the natural ecosystem. Okay, so that is the end of part 1. Part 2, we start to move towards the end of the vineyard year in Bordeaux. Remember, these are concepts that are specific to Bordeaux. If you want more general overarching concepts, it's a real good idea to re-watch my D1 videos on viticulture, but you should already be pretty well versed on those. Part 2 will only be available to my e-learning members. That's at www.winewithjimmy.com. Please go across there to sign up for all of this wonderful exclusive content. Now, if you have any questions, concerns or comments, please do get in touch. You can do so by commenting on this video below. Make sure you click like and subscribe whilst you are down there. And of course, if you find yourself in London, in the United Kingdom, then come and see me. Drop by and say hi. Come and see me at one of my establishments for a glass or a bottle. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.